Marvelous hello, friends and loved ones, how are you today? So do you all remember a while back when I said, but that's a video for another day? Well, that was 6 months ago, so I think that day has finally come. Taito Legends 2. I already covered the first disc in great detail, so if you want to learn more about that one, click that card up there. But for now, I've got 39 arcade classics to cover, so let's just jump right into this. At the very top of this list, we've got Alpine Ski, which is a pretty okay skiing game from 1982. You go down the hill trying to dodge obstacles and collect as many points as you can in the short time limit. I kept waiting for like the Yeti from Ski Free or something to come eat me, but it never happened. I just fell down a lot. Like, a lot. Darius Gaiden is a horizontal shooter that, despite being called Gaiden, seems to just be a regular installment in the series, and man, is it awesome! The game has non-linear stages, and I kept playing just to see what the next stage or boss was gonna look like. It can be a little chaotic at times, but thanks to unlimited continues, I still had a blast. I would love to play through this game's co-op mode with a buddy sometime. There's also G Darius, which I think is the newest game in this collection. It came out in 1997, and unlike most games here, uses 3D polygons rather than sprites. It looks good and plays well, but I think I preferred Gaiden just a little bit more. Both are awesome shooters, and you really can't go wrong with either. Kurikintin is a side-scrolling 2D beat-em-up. Visually, this game has a lot going for it. The sprites aren't bad, and the game was inspired by popular manga at the time, like Dragon Ball and Fist of the North Star. It definitely shows in the sound effect bubbles, but my punches don't really feel like they carry much weight. Less of a pow and more of a pff. Also, I'm pretty sure these bosses are just the Pillarmen. Next up is Arabian Magic, a co-op beat-em-up title. Taito was really good at making these, and this isn't the only game of this genre I'll be talking about today. You choose one of 4 characters with their own strengths and weaknesses, and collect 7 jewels to lift a curse from the king. In the arcades, this definitely would have been a quarter stealer, but it's a blast to play on this disc. You can even summon Will Smith to help you out when you're in a bind. Bonzi Adventure is a side-scrolling running gun similar to Capcom's Ghouls and Ghosts series, except you play as a Japanese monk. The game is fun and loaded up with a lot of Japanese mythology. Definitely a great time, even if the second level seems a bit different for some reason. Liquid Kids? Ew, really? That's what they decided to call it? Yeah, okay. Is a really cute platformer. You play as this hippo platypus thing and use water bombs to defeat enemies and rescue your friends. The game is just dripping with charm. It makes quite a splash, you know? There are even boss battles which are water pun. Camel tree, or there's a ball, and you twist and turn this maze around to get it to the goal. It's pretty impressive for 1989, but it just made me dizzy, and I have no idea what it has to do with camels. I do like this little tutorial girl in the corner, though. She made me smile. The oldest game on this disc is Lunar Rescue from 1979, and I've gotta say, while some of Taito's early games have been kinda duds, this one is pretty fun. There are basically 2 parts to it. One, where your ship has to travel downwards, dodging asteroids and whatever this thing that killed me is, and once you pick someone up, you have to safely make it back to your own ship by shooting down aliens. It might be blasphemous to say this, but I think I actually like this more than Space Invaders. Chack and Pop, disappointingly, isn't the name of this summer's hit new buddy cop movie, but is instead this weird Pac-Man, Bubble Bobble, Bomberman hybrid thing. And those are 3 games that I'd much rather be playing than this. Next up is Elevator Action 2, or Elevator Action Returns, as the back of the box calls it, and it's basically just more of elevator action. The disc itself even refers to it as an updated version, but man, what a difference 11 years makes, because the graphics are enhanced, and there are even more playable characters, including the best Sonic character ever, Jad the Taff. The game is better in virtually every single way, but since the N in action is no longer a man holding a gun, I'm gonna have to give it a 2 out of 10. Majestic 12 is a game that gave me a headache. See, the back of the box and the instruction manual referred to it as Super Space Invaders 91, but I couldn't find that on the disc. I couldn't even find it when I was looking for games released in 1991, because the game is actually called Majestic 12 and was released in 1990. Was it too much trouble to make sure the titles on the disc matched the box? Anyway, that's the most interesting thing I have to talk about, because it may be the 4th installment and adds some stuff, but it's still Space Invaders. While we're on the subject, there's also Space Invaders DX from 1994, still Space Invaders, like literally the classic 1978 game. But there's also a versus mode, and even this cool parody version with references to other Taito games that I kinda liked. Lastly, there's Space Invaders 95. It's still Oh, it kind of isn't. I mean, yeah, mechanically, everything we know about the series is still here, but this one feels like quite the departure from the other games. The art is a lot different, but still feels like Taito, multiple playable characters, and even boss fights. I know it may not be as iconic as the original Space Invaders, but this one would probably be my personal favorite to go back to. Next on the list is Cleopatra Fortune. Back in the first video, I mentioned I'm not really big on block puzzle games, but this one is no exception. You have to surround treasures with blocks to make them disappear, but get rid of the leftover blocks by making a Tetris. It's not a bad game at all, but just not a genre that I personally like. Cleopatra is a total cutie though, much better than this guy, and I like this little upbeat song she brings into the music every now and then. The Legend of Cage. Or it's probably Kage, since I'm a ninja. The story of this game is... that, and you just run around different environments, killing enemies. I'm not a big fan of the way this game looks, sounds, or controls. But there is something objectively hilarious about the way Kage just kinda ragdolls to the ground when he dies, and then this guy's just like, did that? Going to Taco Bell. Metal Black is another horizontal shooter. It looks and sounds okay, but this is not one of the better ones in the genre. The ship you control feels really sluggish to move around. Sometimes it's hard to tell what part of the scenery will kill you or not. I got stuck in this instant death trap, and even with full power, this first boss took way too long to kill. The entire time I was playing this one, I just thought I'd rather be playing Darius Gaiden. Crazy Balloon! You're a balloon, there are spikes, don't get popped. It's pretty dull. It plays a little chiptune version of Carmen, though. Poochie Carrot, sounds kinda dirty, is a pretty colorful and charming breakout-style game. You choose one of a variety of characters, which I think is just an aesthetic thing, and then try to destroy all the gems that come down from above. I had a lot of fun with this game, even though I wasn't very good at it. I think some things was distracting me, but I can't imagine what. The next game is Don Doko Don, an arena platformer similar to Bubble Bobble, where your goal is to clear all the enemies in each area. But I think Taito was trying to make their own Mario as you play the Carpenter brothers Bob and Yellow Bob. The game is enjoyable, especially with a friend. If I had any real nitpick, it's that the sound effects get pretty annoying pretty quickly. Kicks! It's just Kicks. I already talked about a more detailed version in the first video. Really not much to say about this one. Dungeon Magic is an isometric beat-em-up that looks really awesome, but unfortunately doesn't play really awesome. For starters, I don't think isometric views work very well for beat-em-ups, and everything from walking to attacking feels incredibly sluggish, especially during boss fights where this game suffered from some major slowdown. Taito has made some great beat-em-ups, but this ain't one of them. Rhyme Eyes, or Raymis, or however it's pronounced, asks us the most important question in life. What if Pac-Man was a car? Nastar Warrior is the sequel to Rastan from the first Taito Legends, and somehow it seems worse. Rastan here feels especially goofy and doesn't control well at all. The graphics are better, but it just does not play well in my eyes. Next up is Puzzle Bobble 2, or Bust-A-Move Again as it was known in North America. We all know this game, right? Shoot bubbles up and try and match 3 of the same color to make them disappear. It's as well known and beloved as Bubble Bobble itself, so I'm just going to take this moment to remind you all that the PS1 cover art for this game is one of the worst things ever made. The Fairyland Story. Aww, that sounds like a cute, happy, you play as a witch that turns people into cake and then smushes them. I'm pretty sure this is a very specific fetish for some people. No judgment. Hat Trick Hero is a game where you have to take down the 7 best soccer teams in the world. The name and description make it sound like a really awesome No More Heroes spin-off, but it's nowhere near that exciting. That said, it's not a bad soccer game, and I love how into it this game actually gets. I didn't even score and I was excited for it. Frontline is insanely goofy. It's a war game that starts out like this. And that's really all you need to know.
War. War never changes.
Violence Fight, which I'm assuming was named by the same 6-year-old who gave us Space Gun, is a fighting game that's not very good. It's essentially a fighting game that uses basic beat-em-up style controls, and it's just too bare bones to be really good at either. Let's just move on to the next game. Or as the game says, next, you! Get Kiridon reminds me of one of those really cheesy mech animes, and I love it. The first level involves chasing down the bad guy in a vertical shooter, and you end up traveling through time to try and stop him once and for all. By level 2 though, the game quickly turns into a chaotic bullet hell, but it's still really fun and plays really well, even if I am unable to figure out what's even happening before I blow up. Growl is another beat-em-up title, and it's pretty great. Like other games on this disc, much more so with a buddy. You play as Illinois Jones and beat up a bunch of poachers, and I mean a bunch of them, to rescue animals. The best part of this game is when the animals you rescue actually help you out in combat. Yes, elephant friend, destroy them! Destroy them all! I'm a good person. Then there's Kiki Kai Kai, which plays a lot like Pocky and Rocky. In fact, it turns out it's because it is Pocky and Rocky, as this is the official prequel to the SNES game. If you haven't played either, it's like a vertical shooter, except you have a lot more control about where your character can move and the direction she can attack. The game is fun, but it's really hard, and unfortunately there are no continues. I don't know if there's an actual end to this game, but it's really fun for trying to get a high score. Next is Gun Frontier, which is another vertical shooter. I don't have much to say about this one. Taito has better games in this genre, and it does this thing where dying sends you back to a checkpoint rather than letting you jump back into the action like most shooters. I don't really recommend it. Balloon Bomber is basically Space Invaders, except they can destroy the ground. Not awful, but really nothing special. Grid Seeker is a pretty solid shooter. The power-up system makes it a lot of fun. Taito's had quite a few vertical shooters on this disc, but I think this is easily one of the best. Another horizontal shooter is Insector X. That does not look like the letter T. More like Insector XXX, know what I'm saying? This is one of those games that I think qualifies as a cute-em-up, as the graphics and enemies and everything are all really charming. My only real complaint with this game is it doesn't have auto-fire, so you might be feeling a little sore after just a couple of minutes with this one. The last shooter I want to look at today is Ray Storm. This is another one of those newfangled high-tech 3D polygonal games. The main mechanic here seems to be the lock-on system, which does look and play kinda cool, but this game is one that's really only fun if you're playing with a friend. Civalion is a game that in the arcade was controlled with one of those track ball things, and it doesn't work so great on a controller. I love the idea of playing as a fire-breathing mechanical giant space dragon, but man, this game is chaotic. It certainly isn't a bad game, but the specific trackball control scheme makes me think maybe it wasn't the best choice for this collection. And the last of our 39 games is Wild Western, the rootin' tootin'est arcade game about cowboys of all time. And by that I mean it's basically identical to Frontline from earlier. Both are colorful, cartoony, goofy, and just involve trying to run around while aiming and shooting people. I think I liked this one a little bit more though, if for no other reason than the aesthetic of it. It's far from a favorite, but I did really enjoy it. And that's it for Taito Legends 2. 39 arcade titles. And just like the first collection, some are good, some are even great, some are just okay, and some are chack and pop. But let's go ahead and answer the two big questions. First of all, is this one better than Taito Legends 1? Well, your mileage may vary on that. This one certainly has more games, but does it have better games? It is lacking Zookeeper and Bubble Bobble, but I think this one has a better selection of co-op games, thanks to its shooters and beat-em-ups. I know this is also a nitpick, but I just don't like the menus in Taito Legends 2 as much. They no longer show you what the game's arcade cabinet looked like, and they got rid of the neat bonus stuff like showing off the arcade flyers. Even the music that plays in the background just isn't as catchy. Though I do like that Taito Legends 2 lets you adjust things on most of the games, like choosing the amount of lives you have or even the game's difficulty. Secondly, is it worth picking up? Absolutely. Taito Legends 2 seems to go for a little bit more than the first one at around 15 to 30 bucks, but if you find it for a good price, I'd definitely grab it. Both Taito Legends discs are some of the best arcade compilations I've ever owned and are well worth getting for your collection. So, I want to know, which of these games looked good to you? And do you think Taito Legends 2 looks better than the first disc? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. Whew, wow, 39 games. I am exhausted. How do you even rest after covering that many games? Whew.